highlighting history of suburban Sydney with the St Peter's Cooks River History Group.
Our aim is to promote and preserve local history.
We are based at St Peter's in Sydney's inner west.
Gladesville, with riverside views, bush settings and a landmark bridge, is located on the northern bank of the Parramatta River.
Rock carvings in Glades Bay Park are evidence of Aboriginal occupation in the area.
On Wharf Road, adjacent to the boathouse, a plaque commemorates the landing in February 1788 of Governor Arthur Phillip and the naming of Looking Glass Bay, after a looking glass or mirror that was given to an Aboriginal man.
European settlement began in the 1790s. One of the first land grants was to John Doody, a convict artist who documented Australian natural history. The area became known as Doody's Bay.
John Glade purchased Doody's grant in 1817.
The building of the Great North Road by convicts between 1825 and 1836 linked Sydney with the Hunter Valley. The road crossed the Parramatta River by punt from Abbotsford to Bedlam Point, the narrowest part of the river. The remains of the convict-built landing are still visible at the end of Punt Road.
From the 1820s, a Flagstaff relayed semaphore signals between Sydney and Parramatta. Flagstaff Street and Flagstaff Car Park derive their names from this.
In 1832, a ferry service was established to cross the river to Bedlam Point.
Passengers from the ferry disembarked near the King's Arms, also known as the Red House, which opened in 1837. Pigeon shooting, a popular sport at that time, took place there.
The Tarban Creek Lunatic Asylum was completed in 1838, the first purpose-built mental asylum in New South Wales.
A two-storey sandstone house, the Priory, in Salter Street, was built in the late 1840s. It was purchased by the Marist fathers in the 1850s. The hospital acquired it in 1888.
By the time of John Glade's death in 1848, his property included a number of adjoining holdings. His land was sold to Sydney solicitor W. Billiard, who subdivided and sold the land in 1855, naming it Gladesville.
The subdivision and development of the Gladesville estate included the building of a wharf. With better access to the area, land parcels were described as suitable sites for gentlemen's villas, with ample grounds for gardens, lawns and orchards. Wharf Road, at the centre of the Gladesville estate, is the second oldest official road in Gladesville.
A post office was established at the wharf in 1861.
From the 1850s, the Parramatta River was a popular venue for major rowing events.
The Flagstaff Inn was licensed to John Worthington in 1856.
Master builder John Crotty erected a sandstone residence on a block of land above the Bedlam Punt. It acquired the name Rock End. From 1866 to 1909, it was the home of Emily Jane Barton, grandmother of poet A.B. Banjo Patterson. In 1923, it became the office of Harold Meggett's Helmeg factory. By the 1970s, the cottage was empty and vandalised. Community lobbying, led by the Gladesville Progress Association, succeeded in persuading the state government and Ryde Council to purchase the site. Rock End Cottage was restored and the adjoining Banjo Patterson Park created.
Crotty also bought several blocks of land on the Great North Road near the Flagstaff and built a weatherboard cottage which became the Gladesville Hotel. In 1889, the proprietor, J. Isles, advertised first-class accommodation to scholars with the facility of a boat shed. The hotel ceased to operate in 1918.
In 1869, the asylum became known as Gladesville Hospital for the Insane, and in 1915, the Gladesville Mental Hospital. It was amalgamated with Macquarie Hospital to form the Gladesville Macquarie Hospital in 1993. The last inpatient services closed in 1997.
Today, much of the hospital's grounds are recreational reserves.
The Museum for the Society for Preservation of Artefacts of Surgery and Medicine, or SPASM, is located in a former hospital building. Artefacts of surgery and medicine illustrate the history of and advances in healthcare.
The 1867 Protestant Hall was erected by the Royal Orange Lodge. Various itinerant ministers conducted services there. The hall was purchased by Christchurch in 1935. It was demolished during road widening and replaced by Jordan Hall, which opened in 1938. Today, the RSL Youth Centre and part of a proposed 8-storey multi-use development.
The post office moved from the wharf in 1867. The settlements at Bedlam Point, Tarban Creek, and Flagstaff Hill became the village of Gladesville.
Land for Christchurch was purchased in 1877. The first service was held the following year. The original church forms the chancel of the existing building. In 1911, the rectory was completed. The War Memorial Gates, constructed in 1926, are dedicated to local men who served in World War I. The gates, originally at the corner of Victoria Road and Jordan Street, were relocated during the widening of Victoria Road.
The Bayview Hotel was established in 1879. The present building replaced the original one when Victoria Road was widened.
Gladesville Public School, the first school in the village, originally had a frontage to Victoria Road. After road widening, a remnant section became a small public park. Trim Place, named after James Trim, a popular teacher at the school from 1915 to 1959. Beneath the Seiko Civic Clock is a time capsule to be opened in 2036.
Residents of the district petitioned for better access to the area. The first Gladesville Bridge opened in 1881. It was west of the present bridge and carried one lane of traffic in each direction. A swing section on the southern end of the bridge could be opened for sailing ships and steamers. After the opening of the bridge, horse-drawn bus services operated to the city, providing an alternative to ferry transport. In 1910, the tram line from the city to Drummoyne was extended across the bridge to Gladesville and eventually to Ryde. Buses replaced trams in 1950.
The present concrete arch bridge was completed in 1964. At that time, it was the longest single-span concrete arch ever constructed.
Part of Harriet Miller's Sunnyside property was donated for a church in 1887. The foundation stone of the Glades Hill Presbyterian Church of St Andrew was laid the following year. A 1914-18 honour roll is on the exterior of the building.
Henry Searle, one of Australia's greatest scholars, died in 1889 at the age of 23. Searle's monument, a broken marble column, was erected in the river on Brothers Rocks. This location was the finishing line of the course on which he won the World Championship.
The Gladesville Drill Hall, also known as an Army Reserve Depot, was officially opened in 1900 with a grand military ball. In the late 19th century, the hall site and adjacent Monash Park had been used for civil military purposes, with a parade ground and a small-bore miniature rifle range.
A building purchased in 1903 by Joseph Kramer became Kramer Hall. From 1913 it was a silent movie theatre. It was later used as a boat factory, roller skating rink, wartime camouflage net factory and production facility for festival records. In the 1990s, a fashion warehouse. It was demolished in 2015.
During World War I, the Voluntary Workers Association provided homes for disabled soldiers, soldiers' widows or dependents. The Gladesville Voluntary Aid Association built a brick house with a stone foundation on an allotment in Tyrrell Street and presented it free of cost to Mrs. Bessenville, a widow, whose husband was killed in action at Lone Pine, Gallipoli.
A government savings bank was erected in 1920. The government savings bank merged with the Commonwealth Bank in 1931. In 1937, the building was refurbished with a new facade. An awning and a new street facade were added in 1992.
A well-known Gladesville identity in the 1920s was Lucy Walleri, an Aboriginal woman known as Black Lucy. Her home, with her dogs, was a humpy of scrap iron and wood in the lantana and blackberry bushes on the banks of Tarban Creek. When her hut burnt down in 1923, the citizens of Gladesville organised and built a new cottage for her in Auburn Street.
In 1923, Harold Meggitt opened a linseed mill in Gladesville. Halmeg linseed oil was used in the manufacturing of lead paint and varnish, as well as putties, caulking compounds, printing inks and linoleum. The mill closed in 1974. The land was purchased by the state government and Ryde Municipal Council and made into a public park which incorporated Rock End Cottage, which became the Banjo Patterson Cottage Restaurant.
Gladesville Catholic Church, completed in 1925, was built as a war memorial. It was dedicated to Our Lady Queen of Peace.
The Palace de Luxe Theatre opened in 1926, the first in the area to show talkies. It became the dominant local movie theatre, taken over by Hoyt's in 1951 and closing in 1966. It was demolished in 1971 and replaced by an office block.
The Victory Theatre was on Victoria Road, the site now occupied by Dan Murphy.
In the 1930s, many of the earlier buildings were demolished as part of the widening of Victoria Road.
Today's Sawdust Hotel was previously the 1930s Gladesville Hotel.
One of the oldest buildings at the corner of Pittwater and Victoria Roads is easily recognised as a former butcher's shop by the bullock head on the parapet.
Gladesville Central Domestic Science School opened in 1934. It became a comprehensive high school in 1955. The name changed to Riverside Girls High School.
In 1940, the River Sailing Club was founded. It became the Parramatta River Sailing Club. In 1952, a crib room from the AGL Mortlake Gasworks became a new clubhouse. The building was relocated to the present site by floating it across the Parramatta River.
The Clock Tower, a landmark on Victoria Road, was planned as a traffic separation structure in 1941. In October of that year, Ryde Alderman James York Sheridan died, and the council dedicated it as a memorial to him.
After World War II, Ryde Council implemented a housing scheme. Over 150 houses were built in 2 areas of Gladesville.
Project number 3 was built on land which had been part of the former Gladesville soccer ground and included Pelican, Swan, Halcyon and Gannett Streets and part of Thompson Street.
Project number 10 was on land previously occupied by Peel's Dairy. Mr. J.F. Peel offered the land to council on condition that 50 of the lots be reserved by ballot for ex-servicemen and women. Streets in this project include Brereton, Osgathorpe, Towns and Stanbury.
Gladesville Guitar Factory is Australia's longest running guitar store under the same ownership. It was established in the early 60s as a guitar repair business operated by Leo de Croo. The business changed hands in 1972 and renamed the Guitar Factory.
The origin of the name Meriton Street is unknown. However, the street was the inspiration for the naming of Harry Triggerboff's Meriton Construction Company. In 1968, Triggerboff built his second block of units, Elizabeth Court, at 20 Meriton Street.
St Andrew's Greek Orthodox Church is located on Wharf Road.
Gladesville Commercial District is centred around Victoria Road, the suburb's main thoroughfare. Gladesville Shopping Village, a small shopping centre, is located off Carroll Street.
Today the suburb has a combination of brick houses dating from the early 20th century and apartment buildings from the 1960s through to the present day. Some light industrial development is on the northern fringe. If you have enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel. It's free. And check out our website, stpeterscooksriverhistory.wordpress.com. Visit us the first Saturday of every month from 1:30 to 4:30 at 187 Princess Highway, St Peters.